Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. We've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Kova, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
Welcome to RSA Conference 2024. We're here in Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. We're broadcasting live. This interview is sponsored by Vectra AI. I am your host, Matt Alderman, and joining me for this interview segment is Oliver Tavakoli, Chief Technology Officer at Vectra AI. Welcome, Oliver.
Hi, Matt. Glad to be here.
So we're going to talk two interesting terms to me, right? XDR was the term, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was all about extended detection response. XDR was like this big term. The last year, it's been all about AI, as you know. So before we get into the AI components, I think let's level set on what is XDR. I've seen various definitions of XDR. Everybody kind of has their variation of it. So let's get the audience up to speed first. And how do you define XDR at Vectra AI?
Yeah, I think generally most vendors, start from wherever they happen to be, and then they define XDR with that having kind of an outsized part of the story. So I kind of view it as you have a bunch of attack surface. And over the past 10 years, that attack surface has kind of exploded, right? It used to just be your network, your endpoints. Now, basically, you've got the cloud, you've got SaaS applications, you've got identity that used to be under lock and key and is now federated out to Kingdom Come. And so ultimately, the question really is, how do you get signal that gives you an indicator of an attack across these various attack surfaces that you have? And how do you then end up aggregating that together and coalescing that into some story where you can actually act in near real time to recognize something, stop it from doing you actual harm? And so there's a little bit of SIM in there. There's a little bit of SOAR in there. There's a lot of DR in there.
Yes.
And that's roughly, I think what I tend to think of as XDR, rather than starting with any particular attack surface.
Yeah.
As a first order.
Do you also include the endpoint from an endpoint detection response? Right? Because this was one of the debates a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the endpoint is a meaningful surface, and hardly any business would not have some form of endpoint protection. But we also live in a world today where lots of attacks can be carried out without an endpoint ever being compromised. Yeah. You can steal someone's identity. You can go into the cloud, and EDR has really no play in that scenario. So a notion of an over-rotating XDR onto EDR in the age that we live in, I think is also kind of like really weird. So we tend to think of it as like there are really 5 major attack surfaces. You have endpoint. Yeah. You have network. You have identity. You have basically kind of your SaaS applications, the key SaaS applications that you care about, and your public clouds. And that's roughly, those are the 5 attack surfaces at a course level that you need some visibility into. Now, exactly which clouds, which SaaS applications will vary from business to business. Right. Which identity platform you're using will vary from business to business. But those are really the 5 key things that you've got to kind of coalesce together.
They happen to be roughly the same 5 key pillars of zero trust, by the way.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the other layer in there is data, right? Because that's the ultimate layer that you're trying to protect.
Absolutely.
But it is the pillars of a zero trust strategy. And so when you think about how do things like zero trust and XDR play together, right? Zero trust is a principle of kind of trust and verify. XDR is kind of the detect, respond, and verify piece.
Well, I mean, I think when we've talked to like different SASE vendors or SSE vendors, right?
Yeah.
They generally say, okay, look, we have our own mechanism to detect nefarious doings. We have mechanisms to enforce our will because we have proxies and ZTNA and all these other various pieces. So we can clamp down on something and remove access if we desire to. But we don't really have visibility deep into these environments.
Right.
And so when we talk to them about integration, it's really about giving them a back channel feed into their system so they can then decide, oh, we're going to do browser isolation for this one. We're going to re-authenticate for this one. So I think these are, I view a lot of zero trust. The majority of zero trust is really around more preventive, around coming up with more granular policy constructs to kind of limit the blast radius of things.
Yep.
Where XDR is much more about finding those deep attacks and then feeding that back into a system that can actually take action to prevent harm.
Right. So prevention, detection, and response.
Yeah.
Now, this is really interesting foundational data, because if you think about playing those data together, I think this is where the opportunity for artificial intelligence comes into the mix. Because you just described it, right? Think of the zero trust vendors on the prevention side setting policy, detection and response, kind of feeding that system. But that sounds like a kind of a artificial intelligence, machine learning kind of model to do better prevention.
It's a cognitive model. Again, I think machine learning implies we've got a lot of, I don't know, a lot of like labeled data sets, and we're training kind of good versus bad. I think it needs to be more malleable than that. But I think fundamentally what you're talking about is what's historically been hard. What's been easy has been to go create playbooks around one signal in isolation.
Right.
When this happens, go do this. When this happens, go do this. But we also kind of all intuitively understand that it's a collection of signals over some quantum of time that tell a story about the intention, about the type of attacker, about the sophistication of the attacker.
Right.
And so this is, I think, the challenge is how do you build these narratives, right? How do you stitch the world together?
Right.
First of all, because these identities manifest themselves in different ways in these different realms. How do you aggregate all of this stuff so that one attack can be a storyline? And then how do you look at that and decide, okay, is this going to kill me or not? And do I need to take action, and how urgently do I need to take action?
Right.
So that's absolutely an element there of data science, of cognitive stuff that you need to put in. But I think there's the flip side of, one of the things you look at in GenAI applied just directly to the problem. We know it hallucinates. Everybody knows it hallucinates. Right. And so I don't think I think the last thing you would want is a system watching over you that hallucinates and maybe
tells
makes
you
decisions.
To do the wrong thing. Or makes the wrong decision.
Makes the wrong decision, but it also, given the same data, will make different decisions each time.
Right.
And so you want a degree of predictability. So it's not as simple as just like, hey, put GenAI to the problem. You're going to have some countervailing rule-based systems that interact with the GenAI and ultimately kind of come to a better conclusion.
Yeah, we learned this, 15, 20 years ago, intrusion prevention systems, right? We never put them in prevent mode.
Yeah.
Why? Because nobody wanted them to shut anything down. We have some of the same potential challenges with generative AI if it's making decisions and we don't know that we trust those decisions. Yeah. So how do we start to augment this, Oliver? Like if we think about because everybody's talking about generative AI and how it's going to solve the cybersecurity problem. I'm not convinced of that 100% yet, right? I'm not. I know what it's good for right now. It's good at creating content. It's good at identifying images. I think eventually it can be trained to learn around specific data sets and looking for some of the needles in the haystack. But are we going to turn the controls over to a system like that, right?
No. Which
means we don't solve the human element of cybersecurity anytime soon, right?
I think the best way to view it is it's a tool, it's a multi-talented tool that can help automate a lot of stuff that is hard otherwise.
Right.
Starting at the very front end, for analysts, you look at things like Microsoft Security Copilot, you look at Charlotte AI and other things like that, the notion of you can speak to it in your language rather than needing to meet it at a technical level at its language. Right. So there's that. There is the ability to kind of take and collect a lot of different information and distill it down to what matters, what doesn't matter. Now, we're not quite sure yet whether it'll correctly distill that down.
Yeah.
Will it just come up with a good story, or will it come up with a story that actually an analyst would come up with? So I think there's work to be done there. But I think what needs to happen over time is, I think, to start with, you need to basically, the way we kind of think about it is, you take a case and you want to investigate it. So to begin with, we have to do an investigation that when shown to a tier 3 analyst, the tier 3 analyst would say, yeah, that's actually pretty good. Then we have to draw a conclusion that matches up with the tier 3 analyst. Then we have to come up with a recommendation of the action we would take as a result of that. And only once we've gone through that step and proven ourselves right within certain thresholds, within certain realms, will basically people say, okay, for that part of the attack space, because speed is of the essence, automate the response. And I think so it's going to be a journey.
Yes.
And for us, we were doing a lot of AI before GenAI, right? So, I mean, we kind of view the variety of systems from neural nets to traditional machine learning through combinations of different things that you kind of put together. GenAI is the latest and has kind of like blotted out the sun right now. But I think it has a certain capability where it can actually revolutionize certain things. Like on the investigative side, if you think about it, it's like if you're an analyst, then you search for an IOC and then you find a blog. And then you go read the blog, and then you grok out of the blog what the blog is saying about that IOC, and then you kind of bring it back. It's like, well, that LLMs can actually do a pretty good job of, here, go read this blog for me and tell me what this thing is. So there are elements of the task of an analyst that can definitely be automated, both on the front end, where you have the analyst expressing in natural language into the system what they want, and on the back end, where you deal with the long tail of diaspora of information and trying to kind of understand it and bring it back. And so it's that middle cognitive piece that needs work, right? It's like, now you've collected all this information, how do you make heads or tails out of it?
Right. It does a pretty good job of summarizing data, I think, as well. You can give it lots of inputs and let it kind of analyze that data, and comes back out and can make some, I think, interesting recommendations or suggestions, or rudimentary.
So did HAL 9000, though, right?
That's true. It's true.
They were right most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. But again, it's not enough to actually automate the playbook yet. And I think that's still the leap. It's great to hand it to somebody. It can
write the playbook for you.
Write the playbook.
And you could look at the playbook and go, yeah, that's right.
Or
you could say, I don't like that, right? So it can author. I mean, that's traditional GenAI, right?
Right.
Author for me the playbook.
Validate it.
Yeah, validate this. Or
but don't
pressure
automate
test.
it yet.
Pressure test. Like, let's say I have this incident. Tell me why I should be worried, and tell me why I should discount this entirely. Like, give me the two theories, the point and counterpoint theory.
Right.
So, like, lots of interesting things it can do. And over time, we'll see whether either the LLMs, the kind of generic run-of-the-mill LLMs, will do a great job on cybersecurity, whether you get more specialized cybersecurity-oriented LLMs. There was talk last year of Google doing one for their cybersecurity kind of related one. But that'll be kind of the interesting question: is will there be enough depth of cybersecurity knowledge in the training set for these LLMs? Do you need to basically overcompensate for that to get to an LLM that'll make a better decision on the cybersecurity side?
So where does Vectra AI go in this space? Like, what are the tangible things that you're doing to bring to your clients that are leveraging some of this that we talked about to help them be better from a detection response perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, we started on the network, so we initially kind of extracted signal out of there. And then as our customers went into, took their identity and put it out on the internet, okay, now we're doing ITDR. Okay, now we're doing SaaS, particularly around Microsoft 365, which became kind of like the place to attack and steal stuff from. And then public clouds. At this point, we're doing basically both AWS and Azure and GCP to come. So we provide those 4 of the 5 signals. We've already had strong integrations with EDRs, and now we're in the process of kind of pulling in that signal as kind of our fifth leg in the 5-legged stool. And so the goal then is, can we stitch, aggregate, put this stuff together, and then really surround it with the appropriate set of GenAI? I think there's another interesting problem that I think we foresee, and that a number of people are foreseeing in this space. As GenAI plays out, it will itself become an attack surface.
Right.
And
we've seen this, starting to see that play out.
We've seen this to some degree, but largely when you look at reports from Microsoft and OpenAI and others, attackers are simply using them as a productivity enhancer, right?
Yeah,
they're not actually
creating evil versions of the LLMs and using them to create malware.
Right. But they're not actually attacking your production LLM. But clearly, if you look at where WAFs went, and if you think about WAFs from your AppSec days, right? You think about like a structured protocol like HTTP and HTML and all this stuff.
Right.
Now imagine something like that, this black box, but it's any language element can come in, transform in any way, and then go to a plugin on the backside. You can imagine injection attacks. Yeah. Obviously, you've seen already guardrail breakage and other kinds of things like that. So that's going to be the other hot mess that will emerge over time, which is not unique to a particular place, but as people deploy LLMs for all these internal connectors, they will themselves kind of become an attack surface. And you can see a little bit of this already, kind of like Cloudflare has an LLM firewall for your internet-facing chatbot. But my big concern is actually internally businesses will begin to lash up a whole bunch of things, Salesforce, this quoting system, other kinds of things like this, to be kind of facing to their employees this chat bot that as a productivity enhancer.
Right.
When I steal the identity of one employee there and have now entitlement to that chat bot, what can I do?
Yeah. And that's why I'm not interested in the chatbot use case as much as I am in more the automation kind of story. So, Oliver, this was a great interview segment. Thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please visit securityweekly.com/Vectra, RSAC, and you can watch all the videos at securityweekly.com/RSAC. Stay tuned. We have more interviews to come.
Welcome to RSA Conference 2024. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by AlgoSec. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me today for this interview is Chris Thomas, Chief Revenue Officer at AlgoSec.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a great RSA. Welcome back into San Francisco. Great to be here.
Yeah, always a fun event to come to. Get to see everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know what attendance is, but it looks pretty big.
Yeah, it looks good. The traffic or our booth is any indicator. It's very good.
So you do have a booth?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, right across from Splunk.
Right across from Splunk.
Yeah,
okay.
so we get a lot of good traffic there.
Good. All right, so today we're talking about business applications, both being the problem and the solution. So starting out, let's talk about AlgoSec first and what kind of a company AlgoSec is, because it's a very interesting space.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people don't know, but AlgoSec's actually been around for almost 20 years here.
Oh, yeah.
So we're no stranger to the enterprise space and to government business. And, it's a very unique company. I've done 6 ventures in my life. This is my 6th one, but the company's unique in a lot of different ways. I think number one is our longevity and the stability of our business. We've always run the company with an eye towards fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
So we don't really follow necessarily a Silicon Valley model where raise a lot of money, spend a lot of money for growth. So we're a conservative business that's focused maniacally on our customer experience, on our partner community. And we've managed to build the business up very, very nicely over the years. We have thousands of customers we've sold to. We are really focused on the experience of that customer base. We operate in highly regulated markets, so banking, financial services, insurance, healthcare, government agencies. We do a lot of work in retail as well. So with a focus on growing the customer base, focus on our partner community, it's been a pleasure, and we are actually a profitable business as well, which is also truly unique. So very stable. We know how to deal with big customers on a global basis, and we're continuing to grow the company very nicely. And last year we experienced about 35% growth in our top line business. So we're very happy about that.
I'd expect nothing different from the Chief Revenue Officer.
Yeah, well, there it is. Yeah. And we do hire people too, unlike a lot of our other competitors that have been restructuring. But we've enjoyed that quite a bit. And it's thanks to our customers and thank you to our partners.
Yeah. And started out as a firewall orchestration vendor, but into a whole lot more things.
Yeah. Well, you might, a lot of folks might actually know us mainly out of what's called the NSPM space, Network Security Policy Management.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, I'd say, where we started. And a lot of customers may look at us, or, competitors may say, oh, yeah, that's the firewall management company.
Yeah.
But the reality is we're way, way, way beyond that. I mean, that's sort of table stakes stuff. Do we do firewall management? Of course we do. But we're much more strategic now with our customers. And actually, which changed that a lot is, this is sort of the new bank,
right,
or the new airline, or the new grocery store. So everything's really been digitally transformed, more and more workloads being moved to the cloud. And where we've really evolved and transitioned the businesses with a focus first and foremost on the application. Application is king to our customers. It drives the business forward, makes them competitive, allows them to gain market share, allows them to deal with employees and partners. So when you think about policy and the way policy is managed, you need to have a real contextual understanding of why change should happen with certain policies. And what drives all of that is the application. Yeah. So we deal with what we call secure application connectivity anywhere. So it can be in the data center, it could be at a branch, it could be at a campus or in the cloud. And we cover that whole landscape for our customers because the application actually traverses all of that infrastructure.
Right.
And we're there for them. So, when you think about applications and you think about the way you manage them and you think about how that drives a business forward, this is what we're really focused on. We're not focused on securing the code. We're not focused on securing databases and things of that nature. We're focused on the connectivity piece.
Access to the application.
The access to the application. And when you think about application flows, they're very complicated, a lot of different devices in path, and we're actually dealing with assessing risk associated with policy that allows those applications to connect.
Right.
In addition to that, we're also focused on, you mentioned orchestration. Yes, we're involved in that too, but more and more of our customers are actually looking to move deeper and deeper into automation and all kinds of different types of automation, everything from speeding up change management requests for applications to be deployed all the way to zero touch. And we do all of that and everything in between. So when you think about the application, you think about speed to market, this is where we're focused in helping our customers get there. The last thing I just want to mention about this is that there's always this little battle that we see between the application owners and the developers that are all about speed and agility and the security side of the house. So we marry those two sides of the house and bring them together to speed the application
folks
deployment.
Need to be able to keep up.
You bet.
Yeah.
And the AlgoSec's a platform that actually enables that to happen.
Yeah. I imagine you're kind of a key component for some of your customers in their zero trust initiatives as well.
Yes, very much so. I mean, this is all about, really for us, it's really all about how you actually make a customer move more rapidly.
Yeah.
And normally you think of us as just purely a technical sell.
Yeah.
And yes, we've got a lot of technology, a lot of innovation underlying our platform. But most of our discussions in the zero touch space is all about how you actually help a business move forward more rapidly. And normally when you think of what we do, you wouldn't think about, hey, we can actually help you generate revenue for a customer, or we can actually help you save a lot of money through more automation, things of that nature. So for us, in having these types of tech discussions, it's also a business discussion as well. AlgoSec actually, we can safely say, helps our companies deliver those applications which drive revenue forward. If you have bad policy that introduces risk, that impacts your ability to generate revenue. And the last thing that most of our customers want to be is on the cover of the Wall Street Journal or some other magazine, maybe one of yours, that is talking about a potential breach and things of that nature. So when that happens, it actually shuts the business down. They can't generate revenue. They can't service their customers. So we play a big role in actually helping ensure that connectivity is safe and it doesn't present any bottlenecks. So it's an exciting place for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's you may have already answered this in some of what you've said, but what are some of the issues that your customers are dealing with at this point? What are the big pain points that you're helping people solve at the moment?
So I think the big thing that we're on the journey with our customers on right now is cloud everything. You see it all over the place. And most of our customers have been in the cloud for years, and they're accelerating more and more their workloads into the cloud. So I think what we see most of the time is big customers are going through massive digital transformation right now. And they're really trying to figure out what is the best way for me to migrate my applications or create greenfield applications in the cloud so that I can be responsive to our business needs. In so doing, some of the big challenges that they're dealing with, one of the biggest ones is speed of delivery of those applications and ensuring that they're secure.
Right.
And this is always the challenge. So you have app owners that are really under pressure to actually deliver new solutions and capabilities so they can keep advancing their businesses. And at the same time, the security side wants to make sure that they're not introducing undue risk. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we find is a problem. So if you're spending all this time and energy on building a new application, but it takes you a long time, weeks and months to actually get it deployed, again, it impacts that business. So AlgoSec comes into play to actually speed that along, do the risk assessment, ensure that you're compliant. Compliance is a big issue. Ensure that the application owners can work with the security guys, make sure that app owners can actually ask for a change request in plain English, and we can translate that into IP and subnets and source destination and all that, and protocols and ports and all of that kind of technical stuff that the app owners don't understand.
Yeah.
So we actually are sort of that Rosetta Stone that translates that. That introduces speed and agility. And I think not only do we manage risk, but we help those companies move faster.
Yeah, I mean, the modern business needs speed as a competitive advantage. The company gets to market quicker.
Yeah.
So absolutely, all the tools and components and layers, needed to deliver those applications has to move as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And certainly I think took maybe security a few years to catch up with the whole DevOps and agile cloud trend and all that.
Right.
But yeah, it looks like everybody's starting to catch up with that.
Yeah.
And security teams are getting more comfortable with automation, and had a conversation earlier where we were talking about CISOs, and the trend with CISOs is kind of following this, where CISOs, their roles are being seen more as business enablers, with speed, as you said, and allowing companies to move faster comfortably, without, having to worry as much about the risk of missing things when they go too fast, missing security, and having an accident the moment they unveil a new application, which we've certainly seen companies rush things to market and bad things happen very quickly. So
happens all the time.
That's very necessary.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit more about some of the things you are doing with cloud.
Yeah.
So I imagine just like you're multi-vendor when it comes to firewalls, you're multi-vendor when it comes to cloud as well?
100%. So we operate in, most of the cloud environments, Azure, GCP, AWS. We have been for years, actually.
Yeah.
So I think that our point of view is it's a hybrid world.
Yeah.
So most of our customers are advancing more and more into cloud, but they're continuing to have a footprint in their data centers. Maybe they're doing a little consolidation. It's interesting. I just met with a major, fast food company just recently here at the show, and they were talking about, hey, everything they're pushing is going into cloud, but they still have all of their restaurants and they have all of their offices, and they still need to have security in those organizations and in those locations while they're continuing to move more and more workloads in the cloud. So basically, we enable our customers to give them the network visibility. We like to call this double layered security, so you have sort of the configuration layer, then you have the network layer. If you look at cloud, it's sort of a next gen network.
Right.
The visibility of understanding potential risk at the network layer, we believe is something that's not really being paid attention to so much. It's something we've been doing for 20 years in the data center, and now we're taking that whole network security policy management capability and moving that into the cloud. So we give customers a lot of visibility into potential risk and policy that allows applications to connect. It's all done through that application perspective and point of view. And you think about the security devices that are in cloud, and it's pretty significant and it's proliferating. So much like you have firewalling traditionally in corporate data centers, and now you have SASE, and now you have SD-WAN, which, by the way, we cover it all. I think you had the Zscaler guy sitting here before. We cover Zscaler as well. On the cloud side, we're dealing with security groups, we're dealing with native firewalling, we're dealing with other branded firewalling. So there's a lot of different security devices that exist. The key is to understand how the applications are connecting to all that and what the policy is that exists. Is it good policy? Is it old policy? Is it misconfigured? Identify that risk, score it, make sure it's compliant, but then also help through any change requests that come through so that you can introduce new applications quickly and provision that connectivity as rapidly as possible. This is not easy to do. We made an acquisition called Provasio. We're integrating that into our whole network security platform, and we're now applying that into the cloud environment. It includes that network visibility, which is very unique to us, and we basically cover well over 150 different network configurations and identify any potential risks. That's deeper than just about anybody else in the marketplace. But we also have the CNAPP capabilities. We have CSPM capabilities, but we lead with the network security side in the cloud. And I assure you, every customer we talk to, and these are big major customers, they're always a little concerned that they're missing something on the network because it just doesn't get the right attention. And this is a big, big gap in their portfolio, and we're filling that big gap for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
You
Chris,
bet.
for joining us on Security Weekly today.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And to learn more about AlgoSec, you can visit securityweekly.com/AlgoSec RSAC. And you can head over to securityweekly.com/RSAC for more content from us. And stick around. We'll have another interview in a few minutes.
And the booth is 5468 in the North Hall. So swing by and see us.
There you go.